So welcome everyone to today's Power Talk, Affordable Power, Managing the Cost of Electricity. My name is Derek Leverington with Empath Engagement, and I will be your host and moderator today. Before we get into our session, I'm going to invite Monica from SaskPower to offer a land acknowledgement.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. SaskPower's work reaches the ancestral lands of many nations. This includes those nations on treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 territories, as well as the Dakota and Métis nations. As a Crown utility, we reaffirm our relationship with the peoples of these lands and our shared determination to preserve the lands for generations to come. And one way that I'm working towards reconciliation and collaboration is to continue to learn and educate myself on the history, knowledge, and experience of Indigenous people. So I've been asking others around me what resources they seek out to educate themselves. And I've received a lot of really great recommendations. One being the book, 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act by Robert P.C. Joseph. I've learned a lot from this book around historical topics and contexts that I was just unaware of previously. And so I encourage others to look into this book if you haven't already. It's pretty popular. And also, I'm always happy to hear other recommendations from other people. So I'm happy to continue to learn and grow alongside others.
Great. Thanks, Monica. So let's meet our panelists. You can see them online there. I will introduce them more fully kind of before they present. But first, we'll hear from Rod McQuarrie. Rod's with the finance team at SaskPower. Next, we have Monica, who you just met a moment ago. Monica is a consultant with the customer strategy and solutions area. And joining Monica is Fern Puisconius from the Indigenous Customer Care area. So welcome to all of you. You will get to hear from them a little bit more during the session today. So here's what we'll be covering in our talk. I'll be walking through the future supply planning process, giving some background on how customers have been participating in that process, and also how you can learn more about it. Following that, I'll be inviting our three panelists to walk us through how rates work. We'll be talking about energy burden, talking about some of the customer affordability programs that SaskPower has in place. We'll be stopping at a couple of points for Q&A throughout, and then with whatever time we have at the end of the session, happy to answer as many questions as we have time for. And then, aiming to wrap just probably 1 o'clock or shortly before. So in terms of some of the support for today, you'll see a couple of buttons in the bottom of the Zoom application there. If you have any kind of things that we can help you with in terms of support, use the chat for that. Again, one of our team members will do their best to help you, but that's best used for any kind of technical issues or things like that. At certain points, there's also a Q&A button. I will be watching those, and so that's where you can ask questions to our panelists. Again, you'll know there'll be certain points where I'll sort of stop and prompt you to do that. And again, I'll be watching for some of those questions. Keep in mind, I'll be, just for sake of time, I'll be looking for questions related primarily to the material that we're presenting here today. If you have questions about other things like supply options or environmental impacts, we've covered some of those same topics in previous Power Talks. So if you want to go learn more about those or watch some of those previous Power Talks, and they extend back as far as September of 2022, you can visit saskpower.com/powertalks. Finally, we're also recording today's event, and it will be posted online for those who couldn't make it today, or if you want to rewatch it or pass the information along to someone else. Okay, so a quick, we try to make these at least as interactive as we can. So I just want to pop up a quick poll here. We're curious to know, have you joined a Power Talk before today? So we'll see how many are first-time attendees, and I'll leave that open for a moment there. So it looks like so far maybe a little more than half are new to the Power Talk. So welcome to those of you that are joining for the first time today. And like I said, we've been doing these for quite a while now, going back to September of 2022. So lots of other information there that we've covered there before, similar type of format. So okay, thanks for that. The final answer is it looks like about 60% are new and 40% are returning. So good to have with you. Okay, in terms of some of the background here, I'll walk through some of this, and especially if this is new. So, SaskPower, of course, is in the process of developing a long-term supply plan, and I'm summarizing it here, but that future supply plan is really a roadmap to ensure that SaskPower can deliver reliable, sustainable, and cost-effective power to 2050. And so, a big part of that process has been engaging with customers. And this has been an ongoing conversation, again, going back to the fall of 2022. Just to kind of give you a bit of context on this, that process really began in stage one with understanding the information that customers were looking for and how they wanted to participate. And in fact, this whole Power Talk series was one of the first actions that sort of came out of some of those initial parts of the engagement process. In stage 2, explored more around customer values and priorities. Stage 3, everything that SaskPower had heard to that point was fed into the development of 4 scenarios. And those scenarios were used really as the basis to have some conversations and discussion about what the future might look like, again, with some more specifics put into it. Most recently, stage 4, and again, this is just sort of kind of in the closing sort of days of that part of the process. All that feedback, and that wrapped up early this month, that's going into getting feedback on a draft of the long-term supply plan. So just a bit of a snapshot of some of the participation numbers so far, looking at things like site visits, growth in newsletter subscribers, attending sessions like this, and also there were other online workshops. Stage 3 saw SaskPower holding some in-person workshops as well. Nearly 300 people attended that. And again, lots of good growth in terms of the newsletter subscribers as well. So to summarize some of that, at this point, and again, I think this is a number that everyone's very encouraged by, kind of over 61,000 surveys have been completed, 679 counted in participating at online workshops, 288 at in-person workshops, kind of like how you see in the photo. That's a photo from a session late last year in Regina here, and not including today, almost 1,900 in attendance at a Power Talk. So consistently, one of the topics that's been top of mind is this whole topic of affordability, because a lot of what's being discussed here does mean that rates are going to, they're expected to go up in the future. And so in terms of that draft supply plan, you'll find that the number one thing listed, and it's arranged in the form of 7 lessons learned, focuses specifically on that topic. So I'll just read through some of these here. The first one is customers are concerned with the price of power now and into the future. Power rates must remain cost competitive with our neighbors. Number 2, many customers want to help Saskatchewan reach net zero GHG emissions. The third one, we need interconnections with our neighbors to reach net zero GHG emissions, increase reliability, and manage cost. The fourth there, our long-standing reliance on a diverse supply mix is necessary to continue to reduce risk. We need power supply alternatives to keep our options open. So that's the first 4. The remaining 3, Saskatchewan residents want to know that SaskPower is looking at every supply option. Number 6, the energy transition will lead to new challenges for our system that we need to accommodate to maintain reliability at the same time as we must maintain and update an aging power system. And 7, we must comply with the law, and as regulations change, we must be quick to adapt. It's important that the federal government understand Saskatchewan's unique challenge to significantly reduce GHG emissions. So if you haven't already, I would encourage you to check out a copy of the plan. You can find that on the SaskPower website. If you go to saskpower.com/engage, there's a copy of the plan up there. And that's again some of the background on this whole topic of affordability. So let's get into this matter of how rates work. Before we ask Rod to present, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Rod's background. That'll help you understand why he's here today. So Rod is the manager of pricing and energy forecasting at SaskPower. Rod began his career in 1999 and has served in that role since, in his current role, since 2016. Rod's area is responsible for developing SaskPower's electrical tariffs, as well as forecasting the short and long-term energy requirements and system peak demands for the province. So I guess you're the keeper of the crystal ball up on that floor there to know what, as best as it can be known, what the future is going to look like. So Rod's sort of getting into this in terms of how the rates work. Can you maybe just anchor this whole discussion for us with some of the objectives, that drive SaskPower's approach, again, from a more philosophical perspective?
Sure. And thanks, Derek. And good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for attending today's session. I just want to comment first is that all electric utilities have created rate objectives, which guides our approach to rate setting. And like other utilities, we've modeled these objectives after something called Bond-Bright principles. You can see the 6 objectives up there. I'm going to give you a little history lesson here. Dr. James Bond-Bright was a finance professor at Columbia University School of Business. He was the former trustee and chairman of the New York State Power Authority, and his work in public utilities has directly influenced every state and federal utility regulatory commission in the United States and in countries throughout the world, including Canada. So he passed away in 1985, but his impact is still felt throughout our industry today. So every utility has some kind of rate objective similar to this. We've changed them a little bit. These are ranked in order of importance. So number one, meeting our revenue requirement. This is the primary goal of what rates are supposed to do. They're designed with the purpose to provide sufficient revenue to SaskPower to recover our expenses and meet our financial targets. The second one, fairness and equity. We want to ensure that our cost of service and rate design methodologies are fair and reasonable while limiting the amount of cross-subsidization occurring between customer classes. Economic efficiency and conservation of resources refers to designing rates that send an appropriate price signal to customers so that they'll use the system as efficiently as possible and so that we can conserve resources that are required in order to produce electricity. When we talk about simplicity and administrative ease, it means that we're trying to make our rate designs as simple and as logical, transparent as possible for people. We don't want to make them overly complicated. If we make the rate designs overly complicated, they're harder for customers to understand, and they're more expensive for a utility to administer. And last but not least, we talk about stability and gradualism. This means we want to employ methods and standards that are steady over long periods of time because we want to avoid volatility of rates to any customer classes at any given time if we can avoid it.
So, Rod, as you know, as the possibility of rates going up starts to loom, how does SaskPower make sure that everyone's paying their way fairly? And there's a mention there about the rate review panel. What role does the rate review panel play in this discussion of rates? Yeah,
that's a great question. Quite often, these objectives are at odds with one another. They don't always align. And so SaskPower relies on our regulator, the Saskatchewan Rate Review Panel, to reconcile these competing objectives with one another. And the panel is basically an independent advisory panel that's made up of 7 appointed members and 1 technical consultant. So every time we table a rate application to the panel, they are tasked with organizing and leading a 6-month public review process and providing an objective evaluation of our application. And they take a number of factors into considerations. They take the interests of SaskPower, our customers, and the general public into account. When they examine our application, they want to make sure that we are consistent with our mandate, that we're using valid methodologies that are in line with industry standards and practices and principles. And lastly, they also they observe or they test the effect on SaskPower's competitiveness relative to other jurisdictions. So they take that all into account. And the review involves them hiring expert consultants to provide technical advice to them about our submission. They host public meetings. They invite comments and submissions from customers and the public. And after the review is completed, they prepare and submit a written report containing their observations and recommendations to the minister responsible for CIC, or the Crown Investment Corporation, who then presents it to Cabinet for final approval. So there is a very lengthy process involved in our rate application process. I'd also like to note that the panel also oversees a public review of our cost of service methodology and rate designs every 5 years, regardless of whether we're going for an application or not. And this is to ensure that we're consistent with industry standards and our practices are appropriate to our circumstances and operating conditions. So the panel provides key oversight to ensure the reasonableness and fairness, I guess, of our rates.
Okay.
So
about the cost allocation model here. Yeah, give us some more details on some of this, and I guess we'll see how we do in terms of the simplicity. Making sure that we explain all this. So there's a little bit to it, but we'll unpack this sort of piece by piece.
Piece by piece. There's nothing really simple about a cost of service or a cost allocation model. We basically use a cost of service model or a cost allocation model to assign our assets, or what we call rate base and expenses, to the various customer classes at SaskPower. And we incorporate methodologies that are commonly used under what's called the NARUC manual. Now, NARUC stands for the North American Regulatory Utilities Commissioners, which is a mouthful, I know. But every electric utility in North America uses the NARUC manual in some form or another to establish the guide work and the framework for their cost of service models. We all don't have the same models. We don't, because we're all different utilities. We all have different generation portfolios. We have different billing systems and organizational structures. But each and every one of us adheres to the principles and the methodologies within the NRUC manual. And then once we've established what this model is, as I mentioned before, it's based on independent reviews. So every 5 years, the panel oversees a public review of our cost of service model to make sure that we are still in alignment with industry standards, that we're not offside with anything. So that works great for us. And then once we've got the methodology set, our rates are based on the principle of something that we call cost causality. And all that means is that the costs caused by a particular customer class should be recovered from that customer class so that we limit the amount of cross-subsidization that's occurring. So that's a key principle when we design our rates.
So are there areas, like certain areas of Saskatchewan, that end up paying more for their rates than others?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so SaskPower utilizes what we call postage stamp rates, meaning that the rates you pay for your class are the same anywhere in the province. Now, there are some exceptions, particularly in the residential class. I believe there's 4 communities in Saskatchewan, residential communities that are served primarily through diesel generation. So their rate is a little bit different. But previously, we applied separate postage stamp rates to our urban customers and our rural customers within that same class. But recently, we've taken steps to equalize the rates across both. So if you look at SaskPower's residential rates now, you'll notice that whether you're urban or rural or First Nations, everybody is paying the same rate for their power. And the underlying premise behind this is that we believe that all customers jointly develop electricity resources, and they should therefore equally share in the costs. And we also want to avoid regional pricing districts. We don't want to have a place where electricity might be conceivably cheaper in one district as compared to another. Sometimes, and I'll just as an example, sometimes we get comments, or I get a comment where I live next to a hydro plant. Why is my electricity not less expensive? Why am I not getting a cheaper rate? And the answer to that is twofold. Number one is that all of our generating units work in synchronicity with one another for the entire system. There's no way for us to know that the electrons that are coming out of that hydro plant are the ones that are coming into your home. Secondly, if we were to take that approach where depending on where you lived, we would increase or decrease the costs of power. So we would have to go, if we were in a jurisdiction that had more expensive generation, we would have to design rates that were more expensive, such as if we were next to, let's say, a coal plant or natural gas. So we want to avoid that at all possible. That's why we combine everything together and have a postage stamp rate, because we want our customers and potential investors to know that their cost of electricity is going to be the same regardless of where they choose to set up their home or business in the province.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple of terms here that I suspect that some business or industrial customers will be familiar with. There's this sort of notion of demand charges versus energy charges. Probably most residential customers won't, because they don't see this on their bill. Can you explain these two concepts to us in more detail?
Yeah, that's a fair point. So if we talk about these two key terms, what is demand and what is energy? So demand, and I apologize to all the engineers in the audience, I'm going to try and simplify this as much as I can. Demand is the rate at which electricity is delivered at a given instant in time or averaged over a defined period of time. So it could be an instantaneous demand, or it could be averaged over, let's say, a 15-minute interval or an hour interval. And really, if you think about this, it's kind of like the speedometer in your car. It's the speed that you're going in your car, whereas energy is the amount of power used over a stated period of time. So think of it like the odometer that's in your car. So we all know that distance equals rate times time. If you're traveling 100 kilometers an hour for 1 hour, you've traveled 100 kilometers. Well, if you've taken 100 watts of demand for 1 hour, you've used 100 watt hours of energy. So maybe another way of looking at it is another way I sort of compare this is to think of it like water traveling through a pipe. So if the speed at which the water, instead of electrons going across a line, think of it as water traveling through a pipe, and the speed at which that water is traveling through the pipe is the demand. And then when that pipe drains into like a tailing pond or something like that, the volume of water that you see there, that's the energy.
Okay.
So we have I mean, we're going to get into the nitty gritty here now. So we use 2-tier and 3-tier rate structures like other jurisdictions do. So a 2-tier rate is comprised of a basic monthly charge and an energy charge. This type of rate is applied to our residential customers, our small commercial customers, and small farms who have a less expensive meter that's not capable of reading demand. It can only read your energy consumption. A 3-tier rate is comprised of a basic monthly charge, an energy charge, and a demand charge. And our demand charges are applicable to customers outfitted with a demand meter, and they include our large farm and commercial customers, as well as all of our oil and industrial customers, large industrial customers. So their meters measure both their consumed energy and their maximum monthly demand.
Okay, so in terms of these rates, like how long has this rate structure been in place for SaskPower customers?
Yeah, so these rates have been around, like we've had many different rates over the years, but the structure, the standard 2-tier and 3-tier structures have been established since SaskPower's inception, starting in about 1949. And the rate designs have lasted for so long because they are the most accurate and fairest way for utilities to charge customers for electricity. So we're not the only utility that uses this structure. Everybody uses some form of this.
Okay. Okay, we're getting closer to the nitty gritty here.
Yeah,
So
we're
here's
getting
an
there.
example from a bill. So just kind of give us some, maybe, we got a couple different rates there. Just maybe walk us through this, what a residential customer might see versus, we got an example there of a business customer.
Yeah, that's perfect. So there's a 2-tier rate and a 3-tier rate right here. The first thing that you'll notice on the 2-tier rate, as I mentioned, is that there's no demand charge. The other thing that you're going to notice about this 2-tier rate is that the cost of electricity, or the energy charge, is substantially higher than for the petroleum customer than the 3-tier rate. So the energy charge is around 15 cents for a residential customer. It's around 7 cents for an oil field customer. So this is, we have to be careful here because 2-tier rates do not include a demand charge, but demand-related costs are incorporated into their energy rate. So this is why the residential rate is around 15 cents, while the oil field energy rate is around 7 cents. Oil field customers can be separately charged for their demand, so we don't have to include it in their energy charge as we do with residentials. So that's why you see residential customers having that 15 cents and 7 cents. The demand-related costs are included in the energy charge and the blended energy.
Okay. Let's take a look at a little bit more on this basic charge details for a residential customer.
Okay. So basically, using the same example, let's take a look at the 15 cents per kilowatt hour. So we talked about there's an energy component to the rate and there's a demand component. So if we unbundled that energy charge of 15 cents, we'd see that about 6 cents per kilowatt hour goes towards energy and 9 cents per kilowatt hour goes to demand. So what does energy cover? Well, it recovers the costs associated with energy generation. So that's things like fuel that we have to burn, natural gas, coal, purchase power, such as imports. And it also includes a portion of the generating plants themselves, the capital cost of the generating plants themselves. We recognize that our generating units serve an energy function as well as a peaking function. So there's a portion of the plants included in the energy charge. And on the demand side, that recovers the costs associated with generating and delivering electricity. So these are all the fixed costs of our infrastructure, our transmission system, our distribution system, and a portion of our generating plant. So this is the poles and the towers and the wires and the transformers and the switching stations. So there's two things going on here. One is recovering basically the fuel costs associated with it, and the other one is recovering the infrastructure costs on the demand side. So the last component of the rate is the basic monthly charge. So these recover costs that are not tied to electrical consumption at all. So even if you're an active customer at SaskPower and you're connected to our system, even if you're not using electricity in the month, SaskPower still incurs certain administrative costs associated with having you as a customer on their system. So this is what the basic monthly charge recovers. So it recovers things like the costs of billings and collections, your scheduled meter reading and metering services, customer services and support, such as our CSRs, our transmission and distribution system planning group, the actual physical meter itself that's on your home, the electrical meter itself. It recovers a portion of our area offices that are throughout the province, including head office here in Regina. And it does collect a portion of the distribution of wires and transformation as well. So there's a little bit of fixed infrastructure costs in the basic monthly charge as well.
Okay. So it looks like this is the residential basic monthly charge. What does this look like for different customer classes? Say a larger customer.
Yeah, well, it varies by customer class. So our basic monthly charges vary between $30 a month, basically for residential, to $8,400 a month for our large industrial customers. So there's quite a range there. The main reason for the difference is due to the cost of the meters. Energy meters, because they can't read demand, they're less expensive than demand meters. And industrial meters have to have higher capacity requirements, and they're also capable of interval reads. So they are substantially more than both. So a big piece of the change or the difference in the basic monthly charge is the cost of the meter, but it's also influenced by the amount of labor dollars that are associated or allocated to them for support. So residential customers are allocated relatively very little support dollars compared to a large industrial customer who has a more complex service requirements and needs more individualized support. So it's not just the cost of the meter, it's also about the amount of labor that SaskPower has to put forward to service the customer.
Okay, and actually, I think this is our last slide that we want to cover, and this is a kind of a look at some competitive landscape. If you have some questions for Rod, I'll when we sort of get through this, I'll start watching for those. And again, if you can do your best to kind of keep it to some of the topics that we're covering here, just for sake of time. So, we got some rates across the country here. I noticed that so there's some that are lower in other places other than where we live. So can you maybe just describe, why that is in terms of some of that variation in rates, and again, why we're paying more in Regina than you might in some of those other jurisdictions?
Sure. So what we're looking at here is the results of the Hydro-Quebec survey. So every year we participate in Hydro-Quebec's national survey that compares our rates to other Canadian and U.S. cities. And this basically shows the most recent results that we have comparing our residential rates to 11 other Canadian cities. So you can see that the average cost of electricity is about 18 cents per kilowatt hour. The average monthly bill is about $180. Now you'll notice that Montreal, Winnipeg, and Vancouver are the top three. There's a reason why they're always at the top, and that's because they're hydro utilities. We like to compare. We think it's fair to compare ourselves to other thermal utilities such as Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, Ottawa, Halifax. It's difficult for us to compete with hydro facilities because their fuel costs are basically nothing. They don't have to burn any fuel. So they're always going to be at the top. As of our last survey, SaskPower's rates were on average, if we look collectively across all of our rates, 23.5% lower than the average rates of 7 other Canadian thermal utilities. We're not including hydros here, just thermals, right? So we don't compare too well against the hydros.
We have to compare apples to apples.
Exactly.
I guess as best we can here. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so our SaskPower's rate for the residential class, and this is a class which has historically been above the thermal average, is now 7 percentage points below the thermal average. And let's be honest, the main reason for this is you'll notice that Edmonton and Calgary did not do very well last year due to the power price, the pool power price. So they're looking at almost 28 and 30 cents a kilowatt hour for their power compared to 18 for Saskatchewan. And if we look, so just to give you just an overview here, if we look at SaskPower's residential rates for all Canadian utilities, including hydros, we are 9% above the average. So we do very well compared to other thermals, but when you throw the hydros in there with us, we're about 9 or 10% higher.
That's just hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a couple of questions here. Just in terms of what we're actually, and it relates to this chart here. So for a customer who lives in, Saskatoon, Moose Jaw, any other area, would their cost of electricity be exactly the same as the example here in Regina? Yep,
it should be. Okay. So Saskatoon's a little bit different. They have their own franchise area, but they piggyback on top of SaskPower's rates. So now I want to point out that this is the cost of electricity before excluding taxes. So there might be some jurisdictions, I'm not sure, that maybe have different municipal surcharges. They may have some additional items that they add to the bill. But from a purely rate perspective, there should be no difference between Saskatoon and Moose Jaw and Regina.
Okay. I guess next question, what about the basic monthly charge? Does the basic monthly charge, is that part of the discussion or part of the application that goes forward to the rate review panel? Like, because there's the rates, but then are basic monthly charges included as a part of that application as well when you go to change those?
Yes. Yep. Every component, every piece of SaskPower's application, every structure of the rate is subject to review. Yep.
Okay. Just a question about some of the for customers that have a demand charge. Are there thresholds, and maybe I'll go back to that one. Are there thresholds that come into play here for some of those rates, or is that could you have? I'm not sure how low your demand charge could sort of conceivably be and still be in a given class, but are there thresholds at play on demand charges?
So do you mean like when do you qualify for a demand charge?
Well,
like at what level of demand?
Almost like a minimum amount that you would get charged when you're in a rate class that has demand charges.
Okay, so there are some rate codes that we have where a demand charge is applied for every kVA of demand that the customer consumes.
Okay.
There are other rate codes, such as the farm class, for example, where we call it like a block rate. So you're not charged for the first 50 kVA of demand, right? But you do pay a higher first block of energy. And then once you exceed that first 50 kVA of demand, so let's say you hit 51, then you're going to be charged for every kVA of demand that you take above 50. So, yeah.
Okay. What happens if SaskPower brings a rate application ahead and it's, I'm not sure if it can be straight up declined or if they can kind of accept sort of aspects of it. What would happen in that case?
If the panel just outright decline the entire application.
I'm not sure if they can flatly refuse or if they can kind of, negotiate or kind of dictate aspects of it, that they'll kind of accept a recommendation up to a point.
Well, yeah, to my knowledge, they've never outright denied an application for SaskPower, but they have in the past. They've trimmed it back. They've reduced the application. So maybe we were asking for 4%. Maybe they put us down to 2% accordingly. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and if those kind of things ever happen, and so if for some reason you couldn't get what you needed to meet the revenue forecast, I mean, what would happen in that case?
Well, essentially, what's most likely going to occur is that SaskPower is going to incur a loss to its net income, and we're probably going to fail to meet our financial targets for the year. If we continue to experience this, like in other words, if we continue to experience significant revenue shortfalls, we're no different than any other business. We'll be unable to maintain our services and our debt obligations, and it would place the corporation in a difficult financial position.
Okay. I guess the last question for you, Rod, because we're after 12:30, but essentially, what's the plan going forward in terms of, being competitive? I think especially on the, on both the residential and the, and the commercial side when we're trying to attract investment into the province.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. Two things is internally, SaskPower works hard every business cycle to find cost savings. No one likes rate increases. We don't like going for them, and we try and do everything we can internally to minimize them or avoid them whenever we can. So, for example, I mean, every year savings targets are embedded into each of our business units' operating budgets. We're basically told to find savings. We're continuously reorganizing and trying to find additional efficiencies. And there's continuous efforts in workforce planning and organizational effectiveness. So it's this continuous improvement model that we're always implementing every business cycle to find as many savings as we can. And as I mentioned previously, the Saskatchewan Rate Review Panel considers the effect on SaskPower's competitiveness relative to other jurisdictions. So if our rate application, if our proposed rate increase is going to negatively impact our competitiveness to a material extent, the panel will take that into consideration when presenting their final recommendations to Cabinet, and they may reduce our proposed increase accordingly, which they have certainly done in the past.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rod. And if we have any time we may have a little bit of time for questions at the end, but anyway, thanks so much, Rod.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Okay. I want to introduce Monica and Fern next to talk about their work with customers. And so Monica, who you met briefly, Monica is a consultant with SaskPower's customer strategy and solutions team and has worked for SaskPower for 14 years. Monica first started her career at SaskPower in the environment area and has been part of the customer strategy and solutions team as it has evolved over the years. Monica has experience working on a wide range of programs and projects. Some of these include commercial and residential energy efficiency programs, demand-side management, or DSM. Monica, that may come up a little bit later. Looking at the future of EVs and electrification. And currently, Monica's focused on working with Indigenous customers, as well as developing other new programs, again, focused on things like affordability and efficiency. And Fern Puopskonius is the manager of Indigenous customer care at SaskPower. Fern has worked at SaskPower for 15 years, and her current focus is working on designing and delivering programs aimed at enhancing customer experience, improving energy literacy, developing efficiency initiatives, and working on solutions for affordability. So welcome to both of you. Monica, I spoke a bit earlier about the future supply plan. Can I ask you to just kind of give us a bit more of a detailed walkthrough of that first lesson learned, maybe just as a starting point for this discussion?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here to be able to discuss affordability with everybody. And I look forward to the discussion. And already there's been great discussion. So as Derek's mentioned in the previous slides, the first thing that customers are concerned about are regarding affordability and the price of power. And the recommendation on SaskPower's side is to continue to explore opportunities to help mitigate the impacts of rising power costs for customers through innovation, programs, collaboration, and federal funding. And we've identified short-term actions and long-term actions, as you see in the boxes below, as well as signposts that will help us to monitor how those actions are going and whether or not they're successful or resonating with the customers. So in the short term, we'll be looking to investigate other opportunities or changes to existing programs that will provide greater support and accessibility to programs to help mitigate the impacts of rising energy costs for our customers. We'll be continuing to pursue funding initiatives that not only benefit all customers, but also programs that target specific customer groups. We'll be managing expenses efficiently while continuing to pursue external funding to help offset the costs associated with building a clean, reliable, and modernized power system. And we continue to apply through federal funding programs, as we have in the past, to support new technologies. So then going forward and looking into 2050, we'll continue to look for system efficiencies and areas of opportunity for redesign as major changes are made to the generation, transmission, and distribution systems, and considering increased export of energy as a revenue stream as well. And so some of those signposts that we'll be looking at are things like increasing or decreasing number of customers who spend 6% of income on their energy bills. So that's natural gas and electricity. And seeing if that's rising or not. That's sort of called the energy burden. And if we get up to 6%, that's when we know customers are having a high energy burden. We'll also be looking at increasing and decreasing enrollment in affordability programs and changing in funding and funding opportunities.
So thanks for that background. So Monica, maybe we've got that graphic here, maybe just give us an idea of what's sort of part of the scope in terms of your team at SaskPower.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a part of the group called Customer Solutions. And so we all know that we're amid this energy transition that's underway across the globe, not just here in Saskatchewan. And a shift towards low carbon and renewable energy production is really important. So this transition requires SaskPower to evolve and into a different kind of power company. And Customer Solution, our team plays an increasingly important role in this transition. So you'll see on this slide, there's the three different circles here. The first one being energy efficiency, demand side management, or DSM, and affordability solutions. So these are focused on helping our customers to reduce their consumption to save money on their bills and focus on conservation, which in turn, this helps SaskPower by reducing the need to build new generation facilities. The second one is electrification and electric vehicles, or EV solutions. This group within Customer Solutions is focused on education and awareness for our customers and working with others in the organization to understand and manage the impact of electrification and EVs and how we will need to plan for this to operate our grid into the future. And then the last group is our customer generation group. They're focused on programs, offerings, and education for customers who are generating their own power. So think about things like net metering and shared renewables. So in terms of energy affordability, if you put this into context, so SaskPower, like all of the utilities in Canada, we're working towards net zero goals and defining how to do so in an equitable way for all of our customers. We understand that as we make our way through this energy transition, this will impact our low income and our northern electrically heated customers more than our average residential customers. So we know that as a corporation, we need to identify affordable energy that is fundamental for everyone, and we will continue to work to identify solutions to support all our customers now and into the future. So that gives a little bit of context as to where we're going. But what are we doing now? So SaskPower, we are doing a lot of things in this space currently around billing support options, as well as our unique and industry-leading Indigenous customer care group that Fern's going to speak to in a little bit more detail, and the availability of affordability programs to reach our low to moderate income and our electrically heated northern customers. So to dig into this a little bit further, on the billing support side. So we recently did a really simple upgrade to saskpower.com, but it was a pretty important one, and it identifies now how customers can receive support if they're having troubles paying their bills. So on this page, you'll see things like how to learn about the programs that we have available related to like things like equalized payment plans or EPP to be able to manage their monthly bills, payment deferral options, self-serve options, including now we have available online payment arrangements. So all these options are intended to increase SaskPower's ability to provide flexibility to our customers and to, so that they have options to pay in the way that they want to. And then other options that we have for customers who want to ensure their bill is reflective of their monthly consumption and not based on an estimated read is to have our customers submit their own meter reads. So on saskpower.com, customers can go there to learn how to submit their own meter reads so that they're receiving accurate bills for themselves.
Okay. Let's invite Fern here to maybe give us a little bit of introduction to this part of the team.
Thanks, Derek, and thanks everyone for joining today. As mentioned, I'm Fern Peebup-Skonias. I'm the manager for the Indigenous Customer Care Program at SaskPower. So we're a fairly new program within SaskPower. So just some background on the program itself here. So in 2019, there was a crucial realization regarding the specific and increasing needs of the remote northern Indigenous communities. So these are communities that are currently facing a very high energy burden, as Monica had touched on earlier, of what that is. So primarily, this is due to affordability issues and limited access to alternative heating sources such as natural gas and propane. But amidst these challenges, there was an opportunity for SaskPower to foster stronger relationships and create a supportive environment for active participation in the energy transition. So right now we're doing this by addressing those unique needs and building collaborative partnerships. SaskPower can contribute to a more sustainable and equitable energy future for all by the learnings that we're gathering through the program that I run. So the Indigenous Customer Care Team consists of 11 members who are committed to ensure the program's success. So that involves increasing awareness of the program streams, deliverables, and services through the organization and within the Indigenous nations. We often work collaboratively with SaskPower business units such as Monica's team and Customer Solutions to assist in delivering programs to Indigenous nations. We work to also create a platform for planning and communication across both SaskPower and Indigenous communities who are involved. We do this through proactive outreach and collaboration with all Indigenous communities within Saskatchewan. And just over to the next slide there. So just to touch on some of those program deliverables. So we offer frontline support to First Nations communities for their billing inquiries, networking, and escalation management needs. We work similarly to our small, medium, and business program support, offering specific solutions to unique customers, in this case, the Indigenous nations of Saskatchewan. The program delivers on 4 different program streams, which include informational community workshops, such as energy literacy workshops to help customers better understand power usage within their homes and hopefully help change some consumption behaviors that will also help lower down power bills. We also work closely with community power representatives who are contractors within electrically heated Indigenous communities who assist their communities and SaskPower in energy literacy initiatives and community supports for billing inquiries. We also take a proactive approach to applying some feedback for this unique customer segment to improve on our internal processes and improve our service models that are often inclusive and equitable for all. We also support community energy plans and generation projects within Indigenous nations by collaborating with data share agreements, and also building that knowledge from those data sharing and those learnings that support the success of the communities that for these projects. Overall, this approach is very well balanced by emphasizing adaptability while ensuring accountability to deliver on those program deliverables.
So, Fern, in the supply plan, there were references to this concept of energy burden, and Monica described that. And again, that's sort of being defined, that's sort of that 6% threshold where, if a customer is putting more than that percentage of their income towards energy costs, then they're experiencing that. And it sounds like 3% is about average. What does that number start to look like for some of the, for customers that are relying on electric heat right now?
Right. Yeah. So currently, the average Canadian household, as Derek had mentioned, spends approximately about 3% of their after-tax income on energy bills. So a customer having a high energy burden, Monica touched on this, could spend double that, about 6%. That's the threshold for high energy burden. Today, this is especially true for customers who are primarily using electric heating sources where natural gas or other types of heating systems are not available. So currently there are northern villages, northern Indigenous communities, some rural customers as well who have limited access or no access to alternative heating solutions. So those energy burdens within these customer segments are currently around that 6% to 8% threshold at this time.
Okay. So not all of us have electric heat, but probably most of us have an electric space heater around. So we've got kind of this is more of a trivia question. So let's say you use a small 1,500 watt electric space heater every day for 8 hours per day for 6 months of the year. How much extra do you think that adds to your bill per month? So again, not all of us are heating the entire house with electricity, but this will give us a bit of an idea of what it does. Again, even just using a single heater, something that could run off of a kind of a typical 15 amp circuit in the house. So I'll give you 1 second to complete that, and then we'll see how close we are. I'll close that in 3, 2, 1. Okay, it looks like the majority got, we're close. The answer is just slightly over $100. So again, $100 a month. And again, I guess our example here, $102 per month. So that would be over $600 per year if you used it for 6 months of the year. So again, not a small amount of money in terms of percentage increase on your bill. And again, you can imagine if you're heating your entire house with electricity, what that might look like. So. Okay, let's take a look at a couple more of these programs. So back to you, Monica, to tell us a little bit about some of the programs that SaskPower is offering now.
Yeah, great, thanks. So our Energy Assistance Program is one of the programs that our Customer Solution Group leads. So it was launched with financial contribution from Environment and Climate Change Canada in 2019. And our goals for the program have remained the same. So they're what you see there. They help customers save some money on electricity bills, improve the comfort of their homes, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And we did have a target of reaching 3,000 homes by the end of March of 2024. And I'm really proud to say that we exceeded this target, and we're able to continue to offer this program to our customers throughout Saskatchewan ongoing. So the Energy Assistance Program, it's available to any customer in Saskatchewan that meets the income eligibility criteria of less than $70,000 per household. The eligible customer then applies online for the program and may be eligible to receive the following items from our trained energy coaches. So those would be things like LED light bulbs, maybe a smart thermostat, power bars, high efficiency shower heads, faucet aerators, and a drying rack. So then how the program works is our trained energy coach arrives at the home, provides an assessment and installation of these products to the customer. Then the energy coach is able to discuss any questions the customer may have about their consumption and provide them with one-on-one energy education. And this is a really important part of the program, to have someone in the home available to discuss challenges and identify opportunities to help the customer conserve energy and reduce their consumption in their own home. So to date, the program has been really successful. We've had over 5,000 applicants across the province. So as I said previously, we reached 3,000 participants. So those were customers that fully participated in the program. We now see 5,000 applicants who have applied to the program. We've been in over 100 communities. We've installed over 70,000 products, and we're estimating that a customer could save approximately $250 per year on their bills. Now, it needs to be noted here that this isn't just electricity bills. This would include natural gas, water, and electricity combined, because it was identified that for SaskPower to deliver a program like this, and we're in the person's home and there was other opportunities, that we could provide more savings opportunities to the customer beyond just electricity savings.
Okay, so some of this is about knowledge and behavior change here too. So I'll just pop a poll up here. This is just a question just about kind of willingness to change how you use power today. And this is a question that SaskPower asked in the most recent online survey. But yeah, answer this. How willing are you to change how and when you use power if it makes the transition to net zero more cost effective, more reliable, or sustainable? I'll let you vote on that while Monica sort of walks us through some more information on available programs.
Sure, great. Yeah, so the next program I'd really like to talk about is the Northern First Nations Home Retrofit Program. This program was launched in 2020, and it also received financial contribution from Environment and Climate Change Canada. So the purpose of this program was to provide a direct install retrofit program at no cost to electrically heated homes that are located in Northern First Nations communities. It was really important, and is still very important to the program, that we engage with each nation to identify their support, their feedback, receive their guidance of how they want the program delivered in their community. And it is also really important that we hire locally and partner with vendors with local knowledge. And then the main goal is to support residents that are facing energy affordability challenges. And so you'll notice in the map on the right that we've been able to work with nations as far north as Fond du Lac, as well as 5 other Northern First Nations that are located throughout northern Saskatchewan. And we continue to identify new communities that there may be opportunity for us to provide that program to them as well if they're interested. So this program, similar to the Energy Assistance Program, it provides a home assessment by a Northern Home technician, installation of basic measures, like you see here, the LED light bulbs, the faucet aerators, the high-efficiency shower heads, etc. But because this program is targeted towards Northern First Nations that are electrically heated, SaskPower is also able to focus on building envelope improvements. So those are things focused on attic insulation, air sealing, exterior crawl space insulation. So things that will help to make that home a bit more airtight and make it more efficient and help to reduce their bills. And then furthermore, since we have technicians and contractors in the home already, we also identified that there were some other health and safety measures that could be upgraded to improve the efficiency as well as the comfort and safety of the home as well. So those are things like HRV cleaning, air duct cleaning, bathroom fan upgrades, and smoke and CO detector upgrades as well. And this program has also been going really well. And you'll see there in the pictures on the left, these are homes that were taken, pictures were taken in Cumberland House, I believe, showing the attic insulation upgrade process. And so to date, we've had over 300 assessments complete. We've installed over 3,000 basic measures, and we've completed the program with over 300 customers. And we will continue to offer this program ongoing as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we're continuing to identify new communities that this could be a good fit for, and to see if they're interested in participating as well.
Okay. I'll just share some of the results back of the poll there. So yeah, it looks like about 11% or so not convinced to sort of change behaviors, but kind of close to 90% are kind of somewhat agree in terms of being willing to change some of their behaviors in terms of how they use power today. And we got a couple that are undecided. So okay, thanks for that. In terms of this question for you, Monica, in terms of you talked a bit about that demand side management. How does that factor into this kind of transition?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, as I mentioned, our group focuses on demand side management, which focuses on reducing demand on the grid by reducing load on the customer side or on the demand side. So it includes a range of techniques. So it's education, it's tools to empower and enable customers, it's incentives, prices, policies, smart technology integration, critical peak event-based options like demand response. It's a cost-effective way to reduce the need for power generation to avoid costs and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And one other program that we currently have available is our efficiency discount program that is available throughout the province, available to all customers at retail for customers to be able to receive discounts on energy efficient products. So that's just one example of how we have our DSM programs available to everybody to help them conserve their energy.
Okay. If a customer thinks that they might be eligible for I guess either of these programs, how can they get in touch with SAS Power and begin that process?
Yeah, if the Energy Assistance Program, it's pretty simple. You just go to saspower.com and there's the Energy Assistance Program information. You can also just type it in the search bar. And then it'll take you to an online application form, and you'll fill it out and to identify if you meet the income eligibility. There's some other questions there. It's pretty straightforward. It's very simple. And then you'll receive an email saying that you're eligible for the program, and then somebody will reach out to you to be able to participate. On the Northern First Nation side, it's a bit different. That's more engagement with the bands and the local nations. So SAS Power engages with them directly, but if there are any Northern electrically heated bands that are interested, they can reach out to, probably best to reach out through saspower.com or maybe through CSRs to be able to be put in touch with myself.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, well, thanks to both Monica and Fern for their information on this on their work with customers and some of these programs. Kind of getting closer to wrapping up here. If you've got again maybe time for one or two in terms of questions there. So, just a question about sort of EVs. Any kind of comments in terms of what you're seeing for EV growth and maybe some of the impacts that that you think EVs might have on the system? Are we going to have to look at sort of maybe different rates or some of those kind of considerations? Because for residential customers that would constitute a different a different way of using power compared to just say turning on the dryer or some of those kind of things today. So just Monica, any sort of comments maybe just more generally on EVs?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing growth in the province. And it's definitely something that our group within Customer Solutions, as well as the corporation, is looking at very closely to see what the potential impact could be on the grid and how to support our customers who are wanting to adopt the technology. So it'll be in ways of sort of load management and how can we support our customers to be able to charge when they want, but then also not see those huge spikes on the grid as well. So it's definitely something that's being considered and looked at very closely from SAS Power side as it grows in interest and demand. Okay.
Any sort of comments in terms of for customers who are interested in generating some of their own power?
Yeah, we do have our net metering program. That's one program that is available to customers. So those are customers that are interested in generating their own renewable power up to 100 kilowatts. And again, the best place to start is looking at saspower.com at the net metering information to identify all the steps involved and how to start that process.
Okay. To sort of wrap this part up, I just want to go back to Rod and Fern as well, and just kind of get some closing thoughts on this. Rod, where do you hope to see us in 10 years on some of the topics that that we're talking about today, or some of the things that you're responsible for?
Well, I think what I'd really like to see, if 10 years from now, a lot can happen. But I think what we want to see is the structure of our rates may not change substantially, but with the improvements in metering technologies such as AMI and the amount of data that we can get, I always say that good data makes good rates. So the more information that we have, the more choice and the more options that we can give people in terms of the rate portfolio so that they can choose the rates that best fit their lifestyle or their business. That's really what we're shooting for.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Fern, how about you? Where would you hope to see things in 10 years?
Hey, Derek. Yeah, so my work is heavily rooted in energy literacy. So I hope to see that we empower our customers to basically understand energy concepts and how they can make their own informed decisions on their energy use. So that can include things like choosing better energy efficient appliances, small things like adjusting thermostats, adopting sustainable practices such as that, knowing how to conserve energy leads to lower consumption and lower bills. So this will directly translate to reducing exactly that, energy bills, taking it one step further by engaging communities and discussions as well as we go on this journey together. So we can foster that collaboration and shared knowledge. Again, affordability options as well. We want to work on increasing those, sustaining and increasing informing our customers on energy saving strategies and programs where people can reduce their utility bills as well as time goes on.
Great. Thanks, Fern. And Monica, I'll give you the last word, I guess. Where do you hope to see us in 10 years?
Yeah, just sort of building on what both Fern and Rod have said. I think from customer solution side as well, we're always looking at our peer utilities to see what's happening next and what other opportunities we can provide to our customers in terms of solutions. And I think it'll be really focused on that equity piece and how we can provide unique opportunities to our customers who are facing energy affordability challenges and how we can really support them in a really meaningful way. And what those types of programs will look like in the future. I think it's a really interesting time and something that I'm excited to be a part of because I think it's really important as we're moving forward to make sure that we're supporting our customers as equitably as possible.
Okay, thanks. And thanks to Monica and Rod and Fern for joining us today. Appreciate your knowledge. Again, I think we probably could have answered a few more questions, but a lot of material to get through. So again, there's some questions again. Some of the questions again, particularly those around some of the power supply options, would definitely encourage you to go check on some of the previous ones. We've kind of dug more into particular supply options, more with some of the engineers and such from the supply planning side. Some more information there too on sort of various cost performances of cost performance numbers on some of those various supply options. Here's some of the ones that are coming up as well. So if you're interested on some of the things on the distribution side, we've got 3 more coming up. The first one on that is coming up next week. Following that, the week after is around microgrids, and on Wednesday, June 12th, looking at some of those large-scale wind and solar projects. So yeah, more coming up in the next few weeks here. So in terms of that, we again always kind of want to check on how we're doing here in terms of how well the sessions are working. So yeah, answer these 3 questions for us. Did you learn something new at the session today? Just give us a rating on the overall quality of the event itself. 5 being excellent, 1 being poor or definitely in need of improvement. And maybe the most important question: would you consider attending another Power Talk in the future? So if you can fill that out, that's helpful for us. In terms of following along with the future supply plan and other things related to it, definitely check out sasspower.com/engage. There's an email newsletter that you can sign up to, and if you're signed up to that, you'll be aware of all these kind of things as they're available. So with that, I want to thank everyone for attending. Appreciate your time and attention today, and we hope to see you again at another event soon. So thanks, everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye for now.